Yes, I can hear you now. Great.
So sorry about that. I'm
Uh,
very sorry, man.
oh
I
no,
did.
you're good. Can you please lay out what you want to talk about?
Yes. You and I seem to have a very similar kind of lack of a better term, a political awakening that we've seen to to use the same talking points that like people like Kyle Klinsky and Jimmy Dore would use on basically how like both parties are the same and that I don't want to say like a burn your bus direction, but more so how can I say that the Democratic Party's platform should be like should run as left as possible. And I feel like from the 2020 election, Bernie losing, that's not really an effective strategy. Do you think that's what happened to you as well?
Do you mean the strategy of saying everybody else is evil and we need to be like 100% progressive and populist?
Kind of like that, yes.
Yeah, so my big issue with the left right now, and I was just talking about the Twitter left, people tend to not understand what real voters are thinking, and they don't understand how to get real voters. It's not simply all populism. It's not simply all, being the person that is fighting for others. Although that is a good virtue, and it does work in certain areas, the demographics of the Democratic Party are set up in a very particular way. So, for example, when AOC goes on The View and calls Pelosi Mama Bear, that's a calculated decision she is making to try and get that vote. People on The View don't like Bernie. The View hosts don't like Bernie. People who watch The View do like Nancy Pelosi. If progressives want to win more political power, they need to be able to swoon more centrist Democratic voters. And like John Ossoff right now, in Georgia, he made a tweet about civility politics, basically. He said, 4 years of hatred is enough. It's time we build politics out of love, compassion, and decency. And I agree. I don't personally like that message. I don't like all the gooey stuff. I'd rather get down to the real core issues of how Americans are, struggling today in America. But when we talk about how to win races, this is why the left loses, because they would rather laugh at those attempts to connect to those voters instead of trying to learn what those voters actually want out of politicians they vote for. And although big corporate influence is a big reason progressivism isn't successful when it comes to the propaganda campaigns and everything, we can't blame literally everything on that. Because if we do what like the forced to vote people are doing, if we ignore where public opinion actually is, if we ignore what voters actually want, then we're going to make bad strategic decisions. And we can't blame literally everything on corporations when there's so much we need to do to improve. And that's basically my thing about that.
Yes. And I also think that's also because people like us tend to spend their time online and tend to hear like these voices, and they often take polls at headlines like they take them too literally and don't ignore the other context. When in reality, like a lot of like the Democratic base is not online. They're usually kind of like you said, the View viewers or whatnot. And they kind of view us as like the far radical left, and they already want. And AOC knows that, and she doesn't want to like be that person because none of the centrists wouldn't want to hear what she has to say. Would you agree?
Yeah, we want to take over the party without them knowing we took over the party. We don't need to come in as super radical, anti-establishment socialist in order to get our progress done. Like, we don't need to be adverse to the Democratic Party. We want to show Democrats we are the real Democrats. Like right now on Twitter, the hashtag supercapitalism is trending. I love that stuff. I want everybody to think we are the real people fighting for the issues they think the Democratic Party is caring about. And I understand people get mad at that. They might think it's a bad strategy, but don't yell at the people who are trying to understand the system. Don't call them fake progressives or whatever. And what we're seeing right now is such a divisive movement that's trying to separate the left. And it's honestly not that big of an issue, but it still is because Twitter isn't real life. If I ask any normal organizer for progressivism in my state, for example, they know nothing about like forced to vote. That's an only online Twitter thing. That is only on Twitter, and people on Twitter have an inflated self-importance of that website. With people like I brought up, I don't know if you heard me talking earlier. Joshua
Yes, I am.
Collins was so popular on Twitter. He literally got less votes than a dead man. Jank was so popular online. He got so many donations. He
Okay.
got only 20,000 votes in that primary. He got like less than 5% of the total votes. That is a terrible outcome. And if we're unwilling to adapt, to where voters are, and by the way, it's really funny when I get into a conversation with one of these people the debate ends up always going to, you know what, fine, I don't really care about what voters think. Like, that is what they say to me. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to get voters. I'm trying to get political power. If you're not interested in that, I get it, but it's whatever, I guess.
Do you think people like Jank Uger didn't do so well because he's more so unknown, or more so because people has a stigma towards new media?
Well, I don't think. Okay, so someone like him, politics is largely a popularity contest. Like, I don't know if anybody
Yes.
has experience in like high school or college of like class president, but real politics is
Yes.
so similar to that. It's actually really scary how similar it
Oh yeah.
is. Most voters are pretty content. They're pretty content with life right now. And if you're not going to be, fighting for people and trying to get that big voter base that is pretty privileged, you're probably not going to win. And Jen came out, he was literally 100% like anti-establishment. I'm not going to try to be popular. I'm going to go fight the man. And the voters in that area weren't looking for that. They were not looking for somebody to
They're
be like
comfortable.
Cenk. They were comfortable. And if we don't get comfortable people on our side by winning arguments, by, winning over voters that would support Pete Buttigieg or Joe Biden or Elizabeth Warren, if we can't win those voters, we are not getting progressivism done in the United States. It simply isn't happening. And I mean, it sucks. I wish we can just go like populism, populism, populism. And you know what? That does work in some places, but it doesn't work everywhere.
Yes, and one of the things I mentioned in a in one of your comment section is that a lot of times that even like lower to middle income people are oftentimes the most, how can I say, the most aggressive against progressive policies because they think that government intervention will make things worse for them.
Yeah, sure.
Like what you
People are
think
very conservative.
in
Yeah.
your district, it's probably middle lower income, but but you say it's like 80% Republican. And
Hmm.
I think, and
Yeah.
oftentimes the fact that Americans have a pretty negative view of government at large, and progressive talk about expanding government, and I think that kind of scares people that are like that could be nominally left leaning as well.
Yeah, many Democrats are very, very conservative. I don't think people really understand that this country is a big majority fiscally conservative country. A lot of Democrats are fiscally conservative social liberals, which is a difficult thing to get across. When you're trying to pass progressive economic policy, that's where we are. It sucks. They are not for this big restructuring of the entire system, although I want them to be. I see Democrats arguing against stimulus checks, for example, where I'm from, and it's really unfortunate that there's Democrats like that, but it's what we're dealing with. So I don't see any other route right now for actual political power. If we're serious about passing progressive changes that will move our system, I see this as the route to do this. Like someone like Andrew Yang was really good at connecting to normie voters. I see a lot of people liked Andrew Yang. They didn't take him seriously,
Oh, yeah.
but they really liked Andrew Yang, and they love Bernie Sanders, and they love AOC. These people are enormously popular, and that within itself is really powerful for politics. If AOC is popular with progressives, with normie Democrats, with liberals, with civility obsessed, identity, like bad identity politic obsessed people. Like not like there's two types of identity politics, but the corporate identity politics obsessed people, the representation like in Biden's cabinet, like oh yes, female drum pilots or whatever, or a female
Yeah.
pilot, whatever the
Here
meme
at
is.
Tandon.
Yeah, yeah, Neera Tanden. Yeah, those voters are. She has influence with those voters, and that is powerful. Although she isn't going to go and come out and be like, "I want to tear down capitalism on the, on the House floor," and like Nancy Pelosi is evil. I will force Medicare for all to a vote. That would literally hurt the chance of progressive policies
Yeah.
getting advanced.
Yeah, and people that kind of do that, like Tulsi Gabbard, are like very unpopular with the Democratic base
Yeah, when she did that,
because she
yep, exactly. Her approval crashed to the least popular politician in the country, I think, after she did that to
really,
Kamala. It was like mutually assured destruction.
wow, really, I never knew that
Yeah, she has like a
like I said,
20% rating now.
I spent my time in the YouTube sphere when Tulsi Gabbard quote unquote owned and destroyed Kamala Harris's presidential chances. And I didn't
Yeah,
even know about that.
exactly. People thought that was amazing. And what they don't understand on Twitter is there's two big things. just because you have one perception of reality doesn't mean other people's perception lines up with your own. So something that appeals to your emotion, something that appeals to your interest, might not appeal to someone else's. We need to understand that. And also with me, if I'm saying we need to approach Medicare for All strategy in a different way, we need to approach progressive politics in a different way, in a more, in a more pragmatic way. That doesn't mean I'm against Medicare for All. That doesn't mean I'm against progressive policies. It means I want to take a step back and see how we can get real political power. But I guess, taking a step back and thinking a little bit isn't exactly a virtue of the left, but I want it to be.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's because a lot. I also think because like a lot of lefties are like really like pissed about what's going on, and they think that people agree with them because of the internet. But in reality, like when you talk to people, a lot of people are like very afraid. Oh, I don't want the government taking away my employer sponsored healthcare. Like, you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, they already have healthcare, and they don't think the government can do things well. I don't blame them for thinking the government can't do things well, by the way. They don't think the government can do better. Why would they give up their current healthcare that they are comfortable with when, instead of going and doing this radical change that might help more people? I know Mike from PA said there are no real neoliberals in America. That is a laughable statement. There might not be people who see neoliberalism for what it is, but when it comes to like what that ideology appeals to, there's tons of people. That's all that matters is perception, how people perceive things, how people favor different things. And right now in America, the prominent ideology is neoliberalism, and we have to find a way to fix that. And I know people are talking about like why are Republicans winning nationally and on the state level if people really like neoliberalism that much? And we have to make sure we understand how our government is set up. The same reason third parties can't work. Our government is set in a certain way. The Electoral College guarantees even if a Democrat gets 10 million more popular votes, they might lose the actual election. And things like the Senate guarantee Republicans are going to have land power in middle America. So they're going to have more power in the Senate because that branch favors Republicans. It's how our government is set up. Neoliberalism is the prominent ideology. We need to be able to compete with that because the Democratic primary is what we need to win. So we need to understand those demographics.
How popular do you think conservatism is in the U.S.? Because like I said, if you pay attention to like YouTube or Kyle Klinsky, like they'll make it sound like that nobody's conservative, but like like our overall spectrum seems shifted for the right, and the overall opinion on masks is like to the right of other countries. Like, would you say it's still a dominant ideology or is it oversampled?
I think it's a really infatuating ideology. It's really easy to get people on board with conservatism because it's very simple and it's really privilege based. If you are already successful, why would you care about other ideologies? Why would you care other than if you feel bad about poor people or if you feel bad about black people in this country, like a lot of people from the suburbs who are Democratic are. Like they'll say, for example, a lot of Democratic voters that turn Biden will always say, yes, I support Black Lives Matter. Yes, I support a little bit higher taxes to help those people. But when it comes to a complete restructuring of our system and when it comes to actually paying up more and when it comes to having black people move into your communities, these liberal Democrats will turn right around on that ship, on that boat. They will turn right around really, really quick. So I don't think it can be overestimated. I also don't think people are too set in predetermined ideologies. I think it's relatively easy to get people on different ships. It's hard to break their current mental models, though. So, for example, I think we can sell our ideology without saying it's our ideology. I think we can literally sell what we want to portray without saying this is progressivism, this is socialism. We literally should keep it like this helps people. I don't care about my political labels. That's why I stopped calling myself a capitalist or a socialist, because I want to get down to literally what are we? What are we going to do for people? I don't want to compete with the already established views of these political labels, of these parties, of socialism, of capitalism. I want to like really get to the core of how to get voters directly. And if that means being a progressive and posing as, a person like AOC calling Pelosi Mama Bear, although I would cry in my in private after saying that publicly because it would be so so cringy.
Yeah,
Although
it's
I would
like
say that
your boss.
you need to do it. I care. Okay, so I care more about making progress than I care about making a point. You know, I think that's a big
Yeah,
thing on the left. We care a lot about making a point and being like, haha, we're right, you're wrong. I don't care about that. I don't care about the
yeah.
theatrics. I want progress.